our goal is really to build an ecosystem instead of just a platform itself. So the way we think about ecosystem is three main components.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are back for another week in No Code. We have another fantastic show planned for you today. A lot on our slate. David is here. Always a good time when David is here. We're talking about Pika Labs, Bardeen AI, some Sports Illustrated drama that's going on, Amazon Q's new chatbot, and then we're bringing in one of the co-founders of Softr to talk about their platform, all the things that they've launched this year and how no coders can leverage it for their own purposes. So without any further ado, let's get right into no code news of the week.
All right. Well, buenos dias from Buenos Aires, week number 2. We are still here in South America, enjoying it and following along with everything going on in the AI and no code world. Excited to announce this Pika Labs. If you haven't looked them up, Pika, Pika Labs, you may have seen a bunch of really cool demos. They are announcing their Series A funding. I know as independent entrepreneurs, bootstrappers, we don't always just want to, praise the funding rounds, but they have launched their Pika 1.0. This is the first version of their text to video editor. Lots of things look really awesome in these demos. When I signed up, I hit the wait list right away, so I can't tell you exactly what was shown versus what's actually live right now. This is a 1.0, but I'm sure it's going to be pretty exciting.
So what it is that it's a way to use AI to generate and edit videos, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And they
Lots
raised,
of text to video, highlights, and screens to videos. Yeah.
so it's almost like a chat GPT for videos in that way. And they raised, is it $55 million
$35
2
million.
dates
Yeah.
and then $35 million on a
They're
Series
A.
A.
Yep.
And that's a lot of money. It's coming out of Stanford and the Stanford lab, two co-founders here. And honestly, if it's as good as the promos look, like this is going to be really disruptive in a lot
Yeah.
of ways. Like for me, I'm a video creator. One of the things that I look forward to most is creating like B-roll and things that I can add on to my existing videos of here I am in the interview, but how can I add additional content? And if it starts to become as easy as prompt to videos, throw that in there and it's a unique video that feels good in my context of my video and it just saved me all that time, I'd pay a lot of money to use a service like
Mhm.
that, right? But
Yeah.
then the possibilities go much beyond, YouTube creation, marketing creation, just generally video movies creation, short form content. Faceless channels are already like a thing. Essentially like where you have a whole channel and it's never a person, it's just content for that. And you can have full AI
Big turtle
generated
thing.
faceless channels and generating a lot of money. And so
Yeah.
if you're able to start building movies like this, kind of like they're saying they're going to, it could be very, very disruptive. And it's great to see that they have a lot more money to try and make it happen.
Yeah, it's interesting. There are definitely lots of competitors in this space here. Runway being a big one that's been out for a long time and is doing some really incredible things. You may have seen a couple memes that have been transformed from images into videos are pretty wild. They're pretty cool. But when you look at them a little more than just at the surface, you see that, maybe not for the main video, maybe they're useful in a B-roll, maybe they're good for stock footage, maybe like kind of the things that jump in between could be really cool. My business hat goes on and makes me think about sales usage, right?
Yeah.
When you're highlighting and circling things and you want to dynamically insert things based on some content, or in videos, right? You could imagine as you watch an ad, a different version of sunglasses may appear on someone's face
Yeah.
based on a certain piece of content. You don't always have to generate it ahead of time. You can generate it in real time, but we'll see where this goes. The video side of AI is pretty different.
Yeah. I sent this to a filmmaker friend of mine in Los Angeles, and his response was, wow. Like just simply like this could disrupt, like, this technology in the coming years can really work to disrupt an entire industry at large. And I think there's good and bad with that, but I'm excited to see where it goes. Glad to see it's out. Let's move on
Yeah.
to the next one, Bardeen
Yep.
AI. It is a
Bardeen AI.
Chrome
Yeah.
it is a Chrome extension to make things much easier for you. So automating things such as scraping data from a website, such as like LinkedIn, and throw it into a Google Sheet. And then when that is done, send a Slack message. And so this is a Chrome extension that has been around for a little bit, but they've continued to add AI powered functionality to automate more of these workflows. And you can start to get into custom workflow builder. You have data scraping tools, you have pre-built automations, and a lot more things that go into this Chrome extension that makes it easier to, essentially scrape data and have a lot of different workflows, filter it, format it in exactly the way that you're looking for in a really easy to use way. I've had some people on social media saying that they really love this platform and that they recommend it highly. And so it's been something I've been following for a while, but they continue to have some great updates and releases. And I think it's it's at the point where if you need to start scraping data and build more complex logic there, it makes sense to give it a try.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting product. One of the cases I've always talked about in AI is needing to be able to insert the power into your workflow, like
Yeah.
directly into your workflow. I don't want to have to stop what I'm doing, go over to OpenAI, type something in, then do something else, then like you're stepping through all these stages of AI powered tools. I think it's really neat. It is more helpful. I think what they're doing is a little bit more about long-term process improvement for you as the user, right? You can save these automations, you can build these cookbooks, I think they call them.
Play.
Yeah, yeah. So you can like set what you want it to do every day, every so often with a little bit more input. You can use this really effectively. And it's interesting. I don't know why they measure it this way, but they keep trying to show how much time you save,
Hmm.
which is an interesting metric because it changes for everyone, right? Like
Sure.
how I use it, how you use it, how fast I use OpenAI or not. Like they're trying to show how much time you save, which is really, I think, only part of why AI matters.
Yeah, I think just generally they're just trying to point out, the cost savings because they charge for the product and,
Yeah.
want to point that out. But I think generally Bardeen AI, it's a Chrome extension. You can do a lot. They have a lot of different playbooks that you can turn to have pre-built automations for you. And it's just a great tool for scraping and using these AI built workflows to, grab stuff from LinkedIn, format it in a certain way, have that then data or AI write an email for you, and then, send that off in an automated fashion. So a lot of different steps there coming together in this Chrome extension, which is pretty cool. Why don't
Yeah.
we move on to the Sports
Yeah.
Illustrated stuff? David, can you tell us a little bit about what they're up to over there at Sports Illustrated?
Yeah. So instead of using AI in your workflow,
Yep.
they are replacing the workflow with AI.
Yeah.
Basically, Sports Illustrated has got into a bit of hot water when it was discovered that they had been promoting a lot of AI written content. Instead of assigning that AI content to an actual writer, an author, they actually generated fake bios of authors and put it on their website. Said, "Oh, these were the people who wrote it." You couldn't ever ask them, "Hey, did you actually write this article?" It really was an interesting like use of this. Lots of sports has been written with AI. The summary, the play, like this is what we think is going to happen today, what we predict. These were a little bit more journalistic, like, hey, I think this, I believe this. It kind
Mm.
of makes you wonder, like, who was actually thinking that? No one thought that, right? That was a guess of what
Yeah.
anyone would think, right? How do you feel about this? What do you think they should do now?
Yeah. So just to summarize, they started writing a lot of AI content and then they had an AI author behind it and they were using AI to replace jobs, right? And forming opinionistic views on all of this stuff, right?
Mhm.
I don't hate the effort, like I appreciate them trying to do it. I think the integrity behind it could have been better and they could have positioned it better, right? And they could have made it clear this is an AI bot that is then analyzing in this way. Here's what they think. kind of thing to make it
Yeah.
clear. So I think that's how I would go. But it's clear that, this is starting to disrupt journalists and, that industry. And if you could start prompting writers to write on all this stuff at the second it happens and have your own viewpoints and whatnot. And there's a lot of disruption coming because of this AI technology across all different sectors, industries. So I think this one could have been handled better in terms of an ethics standpoint.
Mhm.
But we'll probably see a lot more of this.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I mean, I'd like to think there was a little bit more than they just went to OpenAI and or any open LLM and said, "Hey, write me an article about this," right? Because the LLMs are just guessing, right, at words that come back, or they're almost plagiarizing other writers' work, right? They just reassemble the sentence in a different
Hmm.
order based on what they think it's there. So if you were accused of plagiarism, that would be a big problem. Hey, I wrote this same thought.
Yeah.
In this world, it's totally fabricated. You don't even know if it's like truthful. Like you don't know. No one had this thought, and they claim the people who spotted this were like, hey, this is just like not a natural way to write this. It's not really very in depth. It's not very insightful
Mm.
because the LLM can't really do that, right? Like that's just not what it's useful for. If they wanted to take the summary of a game and turn it into an article, yeah, maybe that makes more sense. Just rewriting the information that's there. But I don't know. This seemed like an obvious outcome.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. Why don't we move on to Amazon Q, your generative AI powered assistant designed for work that can be tailor made for your business. It provides fast, relevant answers to solve problems, generate content. Essentially, it's a second brain for your business in an enterprise format, meaning it has a lot of different connectors of how it can digest data. And then you can use it in a lot of different ways, depending on your business use case, whatever, whether it's like a chatbot thing, it's asking it to, look at all these documents and give you an answer back. Should it be like training manuals, anything like that? It's starting to now like connect through the enterprise suite of everything you got and provide more of a functionality and or I guess the word for it is just like usability for all of the things that you have there, bringing it all together in this LMM way using AI through their new Amazon Q service. What do you think about it, David?
Yeah, I think this is like a low hanging fruit opportunity for Amazon.
Yeah.
They obviously have all these connections, they know all their APIs, and knowing how Amazon works, they build all of their APIs for the external users the same way they use for their internal team, right? Everyone uses the APIs, everyone uses the docs. I wouldn't be surprised if they had some nice little libraries they have to make these things easier. And then as Amazon's expanded into more business forward applications and not just tech applications, it makes a lot of sense that kind of the output of using these applications results in a lot of interesting insights and data that now they can ingest with AI that, through their Bedrock platform and all of the LLMs they're trying to, look as a leader towards, they can just kind of suck these up and spit out something interesting.
Yeah,
Um,
it's
yeah.
it's built to be secure and private for like enterprise needs. It's built to understand your company info, the code, your system. So it gives more people maybe more intention of like throw it all here and then AI can help us digest it all. And one of the things I like about that is like if you're like in business ops or whatever, Amazon is kind of hard to get around. Like there's a lot there, right? And so if you had to step in and find something and you're not the engineer yourself, then you can maybe, prompt this chatbot and say, hey, how are we doing this? Or how are we doing this? And interact with that data in a more user friendly way. It makes things more accessible to more team members, which kind of gives you that no code approach. So I love that that is happening now with this because it understands everything and it can give you a simple answer back without needing a DevOps or an engineer, et cetera, to be in there with you.
Yeah. I still think there are going to be plenty of overpaid consultants working at companies using AWS, giving non-answer answers to
Sure.
what's going on in my system, right? And I think,
Yeah.
I'm curious how businesses use some of these insights and how truthful they think it is, right? I don't know. There's always a little part of me that when I get a result from an AI system, I'm just kind of like, how true is this? Like, is this real, or just is the best guess really good enough right now, or do I need to take a second look at it?
Yeah.
So I'm curious, how crucial this, or how well people take these insights that come back from the system and how they
Yeah.
incorporate.
I understand. I get it. I'm right there with you. I think one last thing before we get on to our interview with Miriam, the CEO of Softr, is talking about this use case with what happened with an iOS developer. So his name is Victor, and he was operating an iOS application, right? And that application had over 1,200 active trials. It was making more than $33,000 a month. And out of nowhere, Apple shut down their account and is holding their revenue that they earned away from them, which is over $100,000 in revenue. And this is a story from the internet. It's hard to know both sides of it. But the point that I want to get to here is the platform authority that Apple has of like just being an Apple store or an app store, where if you build for iOS, you're building for apps in the iOS store. Ultimately, they have everything. They have full control. And if you do one thing, they can remove you and even hold your money for whatever reason this may be, right? And so that's platform lock-in, right? You're getting locked
Yep.
in that way. And now this person is going on to like build almost like a union for iOS developers that this has also other people has happened to, and then forming a class action lawsuit to go back to Apple for this kind of stuff. And so Apple's Apple, they're huge. They're just going to eat all this up, right? But generally it is concerning when, you have this application that's on the store working well, making you a lot of money. This was their sole income. And all of a sudden Apple
Yeah.
took it off and it was gone. And they couldn't do anything else with it, right? And that's a scary proposition for business owners and developers.
Yeah, yeah. It's reminds me of the Epic Games fight that just went down not so long ago, where they were basically preventing people from buying things from Epic Games out of the store, to try circumvent, or in the app in a different way. They were trying to circumvent Apple's fees.
Yeah.
And so Apple, makes a lot of money on these app store costs and fees, 30% of it, everything that comes through. And I think in the EU, they basically said, hey, you need to have another app store available. You need other options than just the main app store to get things in there, which is an interesting problem. I think there's like value in control and making sure things work properly. You don't want a bunch of shoddy apps on your Apple device. It makes the whole thing run improperly. But I don't think they should be able to just take away your living,
Right.
just because they don't like what you're doing, or maybe they misunderstand what you're doing.
Right.
Right. We've
Right.
seen this time and time again.
Yeah, in this case, this person supposedly was issued a warning and then soon thereafter was just taken off the store and then had to submit appeal because support couldn't help them, and then had to go through that process and then was offline this whole time, and then their appeal never was rejected, and then it just went into this never-ending process, right?
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
So I think we can end it there, but I think platform lock-in exists in many different areas of this world, right? Whether it is with Bubble itself or AWS or iOS stores, like there's always some type of lock-in when you're building for an ecosystem. So that's something to be wary of. And otherwise, why don't we get into our interview with Softr, with Miriam? Really excited for this interview, so let's make it happen. Here we are with Miriam, one of the co-founders of Softr, a no-code platform front-end builder to make it really easy to take a Google Sheet, turn it into an application, and so much more. Miriam, thank you for joining us today. How are you?
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much, JJ, for the invite. Glad to be here.
Of course. Can you tell us a little bit about your story of how you might have gone on to co-found Softr, and what was that about?
Yeah, sure. It sounds like a long time ago, but it actually wasn't that long. So it was about 3 years ago. Well, I mean, my background is engineering. So I have been building engineering and software products for more than a decade. And same with my co-founder. And we kind of in the companies kept building same things over and over, whether it be authentications, payments, and fraud operations. I mean, you name it, all of that. And also at the same time, everybody had to rely on engineers, right, to build the tools they needed in the day-to-day. But obviously, engineers are there's not enough engineers. So there was not enough capacity all the time in the companies, but also even outside when you look at different, when you go to meetups and look at all of the different people that want to build ideas and things, they just couldn't. And yeah, I mean, on the contrary, for us as engineers, the engineering was moving forward. There's lots of microservices, libraries, and all of that was growing. So basically, no code to us was really the next level of abstraction. So it really just makes so much sense for us as engineers. And instead of microservices, libraries, and putting code together, we thought, why not have all of these components, just let the people assemble together, even on a more visually and easier, so that it actually is accessible to less technical people. And that's kind of where early days we kind of started testing out this building block concept, because the idea from early days was, authentication, payments, all of that can be abstracted and can just be literally a building block. You just assemble them together, and somehow, literally, kind of magically, on the backend, it just does all of the work for you as a user. And yeah, kind of we started testing out with small steps, and then here we are.
And the first version I remember was Airtable only. Is that right? You built on top of Airtable?
Right. So actually the very, very first version, which was like very bare minimum MVP, that we wanted to test out the MVP, the MVP and the building block concept, was actually a website builder. I don't know how many of you remember. There is a first launch on Product Hunt, which was about 2 years ago. I don't consider that as the actual product, but it was really the first product to test out the building block concept, because what you could do is simply, we had only 10 blocks or so. You could simply just put them together and get a website up and running literally within 5 minutes. And we also put a price point on that. And it was much more expensive than other website builders like Wix, etc. This was kind of our way of validating if this ease of use and how fast you can build things, really, if this really resonates with the people. And then we saw, yes, like people actually paid like 5 times more the price to just build a website really quickly. And kind of, yeah, from there we started validating. Always the goal has always been to build a platform that's using databases, any kind of databases. And Airtable was just also kind of an organically first one we chose, because we just saw there is more and more users, more and more customers just using Airtable, wanting to do this kind of front end on top of Airtable. And this was the easiest kind of data source to start with.
Interesting.
And then now you have more data sources such as Sheets and others, yeah?
Yes, we have already launched Google Sheets and SmartSuite, and BigQuery and HubSpot are on the way.
Very cool. Very cool.
So a few years ago, you're looking at this problem, and obviously, as you mentioned, there's Wix and Squarespace. There are tools like Bubble. I don't know where in the chronology, if Glide had come out yet, or Adalo, or AppsFlyer was probably around. I think they were picked up by Google. Like, as an entrepreneur, how do you look at that and go, "Oh, there's room for me too," right? Because this is a problem I have of, it feels really crowded, right?
Yeah.
What can I do differently?
Yeah, interestingly enough, I think at the time there weren't too many tools in the market, but also I don't think we have done like too deep analysis of what was out there, just because we weren't really comparing. We kind of saw the problem and we just went in and we were trying to solve the problem. I think one of the biggest things that we saw was, I actually tried to use several other website builders or app builders to build something for us on our own. And it either was a canvas where you had to build everything from scratch, or it was a templated solution which just didn't work for our needs. So for us, it was really, the goal was to build something that's sitting somewhere in between, really finding this right balance between just enough customizability and flexibility so you can get your custom application up and running, but at the same time, having the constraints. And I don't need to necessarily, have the canvas. I'm not a designer. I'm not going to be able to build every detail on my own. So I would rather have those guidance and this constraints from the platform and make it easy, make my job easy. We also, I think, again, tested some tools, didn't really work that well for us for even building our own website. And we kind of ended up building Softr's website with Softr, which is still the case.
That's always a great way to dog food your own product.
Question: What is like some of the best use cases that customers are finding with Softr?
Yeah, so Softr, even though like it did evolve over time, like what kinds of things you could build, and obviously as the platform becomes more and more powerful and more functionality is added, you can build more and more powerful use cases. So our goal is always just generally our mission is to build an ecosystem where people can share, discover, and create their own apps. And again, the goal for the platform is to be completely data agnostic and to let people build business apps powered by their data. So even though our platform is always open, free, and it's going to be always the case, so we really want to empower anyone, whether that's someone building their own startup idea or someone within a really large organization solving a specific problem. We want the platform to allow and enable that. But our core focus really is business apps, where we have seen the biggest need and the most acute need within businesses that are solving problems with pen and paper or spreadsheets, or they just don't have a solution. And yeah, some of the most typical use cases we are seeing are typically within portal type apps, like client portals, partner portals, things where basically you expose your data to external audience of any kind, or internal tooling, so making your operations and internal processes more efficient, easier to manage, and let other people manage like in a more custom workflow way, because typically also depending on the use case, there is vertical solutions for certain things, but it just doesn't fit the current needs of most of the modern organizations.
I see.
Interesting. Do you have any examples, like specific examples of like an app that's taken off, maybe a public one, maybe a startup, maybe even just a tool that someone's using internally?
Yeah, so there's many. I guess the ones that are public facing. So typically the internal tools and the more customer facing apps are not that like aesthetically that maybe designed because just most of those people just don't care about design, they care about solving the problem, right? So I think usually the way we publish those are through customer stories and customer case studies. There is also some interesting use cases we have seen, with startups and entrepreneurs, with nonprofits, several impact projects we have seen built by nonprofits or governments, where, for example, during Ukraine war, when there was a flood of immigrants to Switzerland, so Swiss government quickly built out more like a marketplace app where they would connect all of the immigrants with homeowners.
Oh, wow.
Of their country and
Very
cities.
cool.
Many others during some kind of world crisis is happening recently. We have seen that pop over, and we usually try and showcase, try and talk about these use cases and share with the world. And some of the more internal ones are, we have companies running their entire operations like inventory management or vendor portals running on Softr. It's typically more within types of industries or companies where they don't necessarily have engineering departments, or it's not the typical, VC-backed tech companies. And obviously, they are in the most need of having digital solutions, especially as, COVID started, as market is moving really fast and they have to become digital. So those types of companies are in the biggest need and they have the most acute problem. So typically, these tools are the best suited for them. They usually have people internally who are able to use the tools themselves and just build all of those tools internally.
Yeah.
Was that who you were aiming to work with when you started, or is that kind of how the market kind of shook out?
I would say so. It's not, I will be lying if I said, very clearly I know who is going to be, and it's still evolving. And I think for our type of product, which is very product led, grows also through community and very horizontal, there is always going to be tons of use cases, tons of customer personas. We have customers ranging from entrepreneurs to some of the Fortune 500 companies building completely different use cases. So I think that's going to be always there. But in the end, what we as a company also grow and realize, what works best is we as a company need to understand what are the most typical use cases that work the best and bring the most value for customers. Mm-hmm. So businesses have proven to be those customers so far. It definitely keeps evolving. It was early on, it was entrepreneurs were the most typical makers were the users using it, just also because we didn't have much, powerful features. Now, as it grows, there is more and more solid use cases that we're seeing within the businesses that actually power like entire operations.
I see. Do you have any demo that you can show us of maybe a little bit around Softr?
Yes, absolutely. Give me a second.
Cool. And it could be of anything you want to show us.
So actually, maybe, I don't know if the audience listening to this have been following Softr's updates. So some of the recent updates have been obviously some new data source integration, some new product features. One of the biggest ones as well, which we also announced during the No Code Summit, was the AI app generator. So maybe I can give you a quick demo on that. I have the app with me here.
There we go.
Okay, so basically the way it works, let me just make this bigger. So the way our app generator works, and I mean, maybe I can give a quick also context of why we even build the AI app generator, which I think there's tons of, like every day there's a new AI tool launching on Product Hunt. So there's two main ways I think AI and no code can really come together, and AI powering no code app building. One is really to help people kickstart, right? To help people kickstart their entire journey and help build apps much easier and faster. And the second is just within the app, have the more make the app more powerful. So one thing that we did was last year around December, we were actually one of the first no-code platforms to launch OpenAI integration, which basically what it allowed was for you as an app builder to generate images, generate text for your app, so you don't have to create everything from scratch. And then also we saw people just building SaaS apps like Copy AI or Jasper AI, because they also could use building blocks literally that for the end user to generate all of these types of images and text. So that was kind of a more experimental for us. And then the next step for us was to think, how can we actually bring more value to the customer? And one of the biggest things we saw was, the letting the user really contextually, based on their problem, generate an app from scratch so that they can still continue and edit and adjust them as needed. So similar concept to templates, right? When you offer templates, it already comes pre-built with some functionality, but because this is generated with AI with your own contextual words, I mean, that is going to be more powerful just because it already has all of the data, all of the context, and the correct image and correct pages generated for you. So yeah, with the AI generator, you can currently build multiple types of apps. So you could choose from portals, internal tool, directory, membership platform. And so what it does, it generates the end-to-end full stack application, a front end and the database entirely generated with all of the data. And then the business logic in between creates all of the pages, creates the connections, and then you literally have an app up and running. So
cool.
Let's try and create an internal tool. Let's say I want to create an internal tool where staff can track and manage and schedule maintenance for office equipment, let's say.
I think staff too, right?
Staff, yeah.
There we go.
Okay.
Now,
so
when you hit preview, can you generally explain what the system's doing in the back end?
yes.
Like, how does this I don't know how this works. help me think about this.
Yes, so there is some kind of skeleton in place, which basically is, so the skeleton being, every other app, typically an internal tool client portal might have a bit different skeleton, but apps are going to have typically, database, then some pages on the front end, which are lists of some kind, depending on what the user entered, forms to submit information and be able to edit this information, also be able to have multiple user groups that can log in into the app and have different access levels. So we kind of have, let's call it a template of a software, so any kind of software, crowd software that you would be building, right? We want to make sure that the app generated has that. So it's going to generate the app with all of the contextual text and copy and the data with all that functionality. And then, I mean, obviously this is first version for us. And then we're going to improve that. Let's say if you also want to have some charts or dashboarding functionality, etc. So that will kind of be created as well. At this point, it's more like the basic version of the app.
Cool.
Interesting.
So as I click the button, you can see, actually, let me just, so this is kind of just a preview version, not the yet generated app. So you can also just choose different themes, different colors, and some basic stuff. And then, generate your app. And what's the most interesting is, I mean, here you can already see what's happening on the back end. So it's building the app's foundation, then generating the data. So at this point, it's generating a Google Sheet where all of the data will be located.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Pages, all that stuff. And your app is ready.
And your app is ready within
You
seconds.
just built your first app. Congrats.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the app. Obviously, anything you build with Softr as well is mobile and tablet optimized. So here's my app, this is basically just a simple landing page. I can sign in, and as you see, the app already generated 2 different user groups, manager and individual contributor. So
Right.
this is a magic link. I can just click and log in as a manager. Okay, so it generated a name for my app, some kind of a username.
Maintain mate. Very cool.
Yes, and then I can see all of the office equipment listed. So I'm an admin, so I have access to create new office equipment. I can create a new one. We can try. I don't know if it's going to ask me to add other stuff. No.
So just for our users that are tuning in from an audio standpoint, we're seeing a full app, and the app is now showing like a list of all the office equipment for that company, such as, what they own, maybe what's to be rented out, loaned, whatever. Again, this was just generated from an AI prompt that we just entered 10 seconds ago, and it's now like a full app here with different multiple user roles, the ability to edit records, add new records, show all these records in a responsive way.
So I'm just updating an existing information. It right away updates. I can add a new office equipment. I can see all of the this is adding a maintenance task, but I can see maintenance tasks for this user. Actually, I think this is showing for all of the users.
So any kind of equipment that needs to have maintenance done to it, printers need ink,
Exactly.
laptops need updates, etc.
Yeah,
you could see
and
that.
I can see details of that. I can see who is assigned. At this point, as you can see, this is not linked yet, but that also could be the next step. And also, I can log out. So as an admin, again, I can do all of the creating, updating, deleting. So if I log in as an individual contributor, I probably am not going to have access to edit information. Yeah, you can see as it's just a list of all of the equipments I'm seeing. So I can see the details of that, but I can't edit this information.
Gotcha. Very cool. Can you bring us into the customized app and let us see now
Yes, exactly.
what we
So
can do with this going forward?
Next step is exactly. So to see the magic, what it actually did behind is once you customize it, under pages, you can see all of the pages that it generated. So forget password, forms to submit information, depending on what item you want to create, all of those different pages, and also the user profile. So basically all of the default pages which is actually one of the most difficult for the user to generally create and understand even what's needed to be created. So a lot of that is generated and the logic of the application. So there's also under users table, actually this is not right now linked, but once I click on my
data source for your Google Sheets, going to connect that.
Yeah, it's going to connect to already existing data source. Sorry. Right?
Quickly, can you build single page applications with Softr?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay,
single page, you mean just one page, having one page in the app?
Yeah, like a single page application approach, essentially, where you're not having to reload other pages when you click on something. It's just kind of showing and hiding things. David, do you want to elaborate? Am I missing something there?
Yeah, I mean, the idea, this is all navigation based, right? And so you see things moving around a little differently.
So I don't know if this is what you mean. So when you click on a specific item, let's say for the office equipment, you don't have to navigate to another page. When you click on an item, it can open right away or can open in a pop-up. Is that what do you mean?
Yeah, I think so. I think coming from Bubble World, you can build your application as like a multi-page where you have a page for everything, but Bubbles,
where all the slugs change in the
all the slugs change and everything, but you're actually like loading a whole new page, right? And that page load is like a second or two. And so you can also build it as like a single page app where you just have one page and all of your elements on a page, and then based on the params, you're showing and hiding.
I see. Okay. Yeah, you can do that based on different user roles, not based on parameters. And also you could just have one page where by clicking on different menu items or links, you can just be scrolled to that specific section. So that's what you can do with Softr. So just maybe going back to here. So also just to show that basically this is the Google Sheets that was generated, and these are all of the users already created in that Google Sheet that allows us to log in into the app.
So we're seeing the data tab, and in the data tab, you can clearly see the rows and the columns of the Google Sheet within Softr and see the data there, which is then the users and the different user groups that it provides.
Yeah,
so it's almost like a database view.
This is actually not the database view. This is the only the user's view, but I could also open the spreadsheet and okay, this
Oh,
is
good.
another. I
So the
created in another
database view is
workspace.
the spreadsheet. The database view is
Anyways,
the
yeah,
spreadsheet then?
yeah,
Which is
exactly.
honestly so cool, right? Like you literally have a spreadsheet and you just say, okay, let's just make an
Yeah,
app out of this, right? And then that's my database. You know,
yeah,
a lot of people
Mhm.
know spreadsheets. They don't know databases.
But yeah,
yeah,
once you
exactly.
say spreadsheet, I mean database, they get scared.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
So one thing we
Overwhelmed.
actually as well do is we make the spreadsheet kind of turned into a bit of database version. So we ourselves, when you connect to your Google Sheet, we add ID columns and we make those connected to different sheets together. So to act it as a database, because for your app, it just has to be there. There
Relationship.
has to be the relationships have to be there. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have a one-to-one relationship. Can you do like a one-to-multiple relationship?
In general, for the Google Sheets.
And just in general in Softr.
Yeah. I mean, you don't do that in the app, right? So if you mean on the page level, yes. So you could obviously do that on the database level. On the page level, let's say if you have a specific, let's look at the specific Office equipment page. I can always, if this is the detail page, I can always add another linked list.
Okay.
A list where I'm basically showing all of the, I don't know, users or assignees of this or invoices of this specific equipment, let's say, filtered by this equipment. So basically you connect to your database and can show filtered information that belongs to this specific item.
Very cool. So you were able to just click and then you saw a bunch of different blocks that you can pull out and they're all nicely styled and then you can drag and drop that block out and then that would essentially build that list for you in whatever design you format you picked.
Yeah. I mean, I can show a specific example. Let's say if you look at employee directory template. So here I see the employee, and in the employee details page, I can also see, okay, this template doesn't have that. Or I can see a department list, which is also a list coming from a database. And then per each department, I see the department details, but also all of the people that are belonging to this department.
Yep.
So it's basically the linked records you can view. And this is all, each of that is a block. It's just filtered based on that specific, record ID that's for this page.
I see. Awesome. And like what level of control can the builder have? You have a whole bunch of blocks where you can drag and drop them in different places. You can adjust the order, you can adjust the colors. You have probably built-in fonts and styles across the board. And that probably solves 95, 98% of your users' use cases, yeah?
Yes. I mean, in terms of customization, so as I mentioned, one of the big kind of things that sets Softr apart is also the reason that it's really fast and easy to build with, while powerful at the same time, is the flexibility that the blocks come with. But at the same time, there is going to be obviously constraints, because you just don't want the person to pick this button and move it everywhere around. Also, just because in many design standards that are necessarily, yes, you can. I mean, designers are crazy people. They are going to want all different custom options. But typically in the world, most of the people who are not designers, they have some standards. They just follow very standard designs and practices, and it's easier for them to navigate. So obviously you can't pick this button and move it around. You can change positions, you can change structures, layouts, etc. You can style everything that you see on the page, also like list level, all of the cards, all of the buttons and the colors, and you can add multiple colors. Let's say if this is specifically,
What about for like that listing? Can you add a filtering option to that listing?
Absolutely, yes. So if I have,
oh, cool, you have multiple data sources connected, and you can pull different widgets.
Yes,
from different sources.
inside the same app, you absolutely can use multiple data sources.
Yeah. Very cool.
So let's say if I have the people, so here there is very powerful also conditional filtering. You can filter things and show, sorry, not this one, but here. So you can filter by logged in user information or by other parameters. You can filter by all of the other information of the specific detail page on top if you have. And
So what we're looking at is we got this listing, and then we can add certain conditions to this listing to filter that listing even further based on, user roles and all that kind of stuff.
yeah, absolutely. Same. Think of it as, any kind of filtering and sorting you can do in Airtable, you can do the same in Softr. So it's basically any user that logs in order for them to see their corresponding list, filtered list. You don't have to create multiple blocks. You can actually just filter it based on the logged in user's information or role or any kind of user group. Yeah.
Very cool.
And then there is also obviously filtering options here, like search functionality. You can just immediately search by specific field. You don't have to create that from scratch. And there's also multiple actions you can define. So you could also define your custom actions. So this is one action button that's by default the add record. I could create another one which is open some kind of URL. And then on every item, I can also have specific edit buttons or add buttons. So whatever I want to define, there's all different options of what the actions can do. So
Awesome.
I could just change
And that's really simple. And for our audience, we have a listing and she's able to add these buttons really quickly right into the top level and then quickly say, what do these buttons do, with like 2 clicks, and it's just there and it's formatted and it's ready to go in all different sizes.
Yeah. This was actually another user that's logged in and not visible to the other user. But yeah, so exactly, like basically building a CRUD operation, like if we speak technical terms, that's within 30 minutes, you can have a full CRUD application up and running.
And CRUD, for those that don't know, create, read, update, and delete. So you can, essentially create, read, update, delete anything within this application in a really easy way.
And yeah, you can also do more powerful stuff like, calling a Zapier zap to do some other connection
can you
or
talk about
workflow.
logic, workflows a little bit, and how that might come into a Softr app?
Yes. So currently Softr apps support one level action. So when you click on an action, it performs one action. It can be either a predefined actions that we offer, basically modifying a database record, deleting something, opening a page, etc. Or you can also call a Zapier or make through the integration. You can send an email, you can submit information to other sources, etc. So currently that's done through mostly Zapier and Make if people want to do more complex operations beyond their data source. But yes, that's in our roadmap. We are definitely going to work on more complex workflows so that there is also level of automation you can do within the app itself.
Yeah, totally.
Speaking of roadmap, what are the most asked for features? Like, what are people clamoring for, and what is on the roadmap?
Yeah, good question. So there's many, especially depends on who you listen. There is just too many things that people are asking. And one of the really big ones that we're currently working on and hopefully soon being launching live is powerful forms. So think of it as, people currently, even though we have forms, but they don't have conditional logic, for example, or you have to create multiple forms in order to have multiple page form steps, basically. Like people are using Typeform, Jotform, or other external form providers. So one thing that we are building right now is a powerful form builder, basically more powerful than Typeform, also like allowing to do multi-step forms, but then at the same time as well allowing to define conditional logic between questions, between sections, etc. So that's one of the things that even though people can do, but they really want to have it as part of the platform. So yeah, that's one of the big ones coming. Some more data sources. And actually one other thing that's really in the works as well, that has been one of the key things that we have been missing for quite some time, is for people to have a way to build, instead of this putting blocks one after the other, having a different layout structure so that they can put blocks next to each other, right? It sounds simple, but it's basically opening up and allowing people to build other types of apps as well, new types of apps like dashboards, reporting, even though you can do right now, but it's becoming just a simpler version. So that's also coming soon.
Very cool. So, I mean, when we think about use cases, if you have a data source that you want to bring to life, you connect it to the software, and it will create an app for you or bring that app to life, put an interface on it, give you that CRUD functionality where you can then update it, create new things, modify it, have user permissions with authentication. So you showed us, a very easy equipment rental example, but you can have warehouses, and you can have so many different things working with, they have this data and they just want to work with it in an easier to use way. And since it's already responsive in desktop, tablet, mobile, whether they're on their phone or their desktop, it's working all across the board.
Yeah, and you can also turn them into mobile apps. Actually, I didn't show that, but
So what does that entail? Is that yeah, talk a little bit
Oh.
about that, right? So is that like, are you wrapping that? You just send it to a wrapper? Does it
it's a
a software
PVA.
wrap it? Okay,
Yeah, it's progressive web app, so it's not an app that lives in App Store. Just
sure,
because also customers don't have that need, depending on what customer obviously you look at.
sure.
But so let's say we have this app, so it's as literally as easy as
Progressive
clicking a
web app.
button, and then you
Okay.
just set a name, you publish that, and your app is ready. So you could just simply download with a link on your mobile and continue using the same thing on mobile.
So let's simplify things for a second here. So what you're saying is you download it, so it's going to send you that file, and then you're going to download it to your iOS or Android, and then that's going to show you like an icon that you can click on to open up that mobile responsive version of your app. And as
Exactly.
long as you have internet connection, that works.
Exactly.
And you don't need it on the App Store because this is internal tooling for large companies that don't need like App Store functionality.
Exactly. It's typically for people using for their business, and even if whether it's internal or external facing their customers, clients, partners, it doesn't really need to be on App Store. People don't want, usually they wouldn't publish that information, which is
Right.
also private.
Yeah, exactly.
And what about offline? Does any of this work without the internet, or everything still needs connection to the database?
Not yet. No.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Maybe at one point, if we haven't
Yeah.
really seen the need. I guess today most companies, even non-digital, that much of non-digital companies have internet. But yeah, haven't had that big of a need.
Yeah, where are you at in terms of integrating AI into like the actual process of like if you need it, you're creating things and you want to create things with AI capabilities to like autofill things, stuff like that, or AI to analyze some of the data. Where are you at with that, and what are you thinking about that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So even though we have AI for helping you to generate, ancillary things like copy and images, the other part, it's an interesting use case. That's the other use case which I mentioned, helping you make the app more powerful. One thing, however, we kind of didn't go that route was because nowadays, especially us using the external data sources, most of the data sources nowadays are starting to leverage AI as well, right? If you look at Airtable, they already do that. Like you can simply have those fields already created and AI doing the summarizing, etc. All of that already in the database. And I'm sure pretty soon also, all of the other data sources are adding one by one. So in the end, it doesn't add that much of value at this point, not as much value as the other one could add for our customers. Maybe in the future, it's something that, like not maybe, I'm sure like we're also going to offer that at one point. It just hasn't been that critical need just because our customers already can do most of that in their data sources.
Yeah.
So basically the idea being, if I have a Airtable with a column that says summarize column A or combine A, B, and C in some way, when they plug into Softr's UI, it's already displayed there, the result in that column.
Yeah, you can
That
just
shows
use
up
that
all
same field and display that information. Exactly.
Very cool.
that makes sense.
Where's the ecosystem at? Like, right, like how many creators do we might have? Do you have templates, plugins? Like what is the thinking around ecosystem, and kind of where is it at currently?
Yeah, so I mentioned in the beginning, our goal is really to build an ecosystem instead of just a platform itself. So the way we think about ecosystem is three main components. One is like template marketplace, and even calling it like beyond that, just software universe, where it's all about user-generated templates and apps, everything they want to create, and we kind of help showcase all of that. And then obviously other users leveraging all of that those created apps, because we can't possibly know all of the apps that our customers are going to be built. It's all unique. The other piece of that is component marketplace, which is not yet in the works, but it's planned. So basically all of the building blocks that we offer, again, it's quite, it's limited to an extent. It works for most of the use cases, but if we want to expand beyond that and let people do even more customizations, build their complete, unique building blocks, that's also going to be possible. So they will be able, basically more developer-like, profiles will build their own components and put it in the marketplace for others to reuse. And like similar to Shopify's, App Store application, the plugin marketplace, I think it's called.
Yeah.
The third part is the ecosystem of partners and ambassadors and the community in general, where we are already working with lots of experts and agencies, to leverage Softr for their clients, for other companies, and for their own organizations. And we will continue doing that. So that's kind of at the core of our, plans, and definitely want to continue partnering with them, because I believe, especially within no code, they're the big part of, enabling no code be used by many companies. And in many cases, we do see companies as well that, they want to use no code, they want to use the more modern tooling, but they just don't have the time, or they don't want to dedicate resources themselves, but rather they want to have help from someone. So we definitely believe that's one of the big ways that ecosystem can grow.
And overall, how would you say the no code community is growing? Is it as you expect? Is it slower? Is it, booming? How would you describe it?
Diversified. Yeah. What are your thoughts on
Yeah.
no code?
In the last 2 years, I think it has grown a lot, right? 2 years ago, before 2 years, I don't think it was that, known. I think what we have seen in the last 2 years has been especially, seeing no code be leveraged by more and more entrepreneurs, people starting to build things, etc., to kind of validating ideas, etc. Now I think we're past that stage, and we see more and more businesses actually leveraging and seeing the real value of no code, even though potentially, they're not necessarily in the community all the time. But I think we have started seeing more and more of those actual use cases where, other companies look at those examples and now see the value, because before no code usually, was seen as it's for MVPs, right? Only for MVPs, or it's just like, build and throw. But in reality, I think the platforms have gone quite a long way, and now enable really powerful use cases and actual valuable use cases. So I think it's just going to grow, and probably, especially coupled with AI, and the platform that really builds with AI, or couples in the right way and leverages AI and no code. Well, I don't believe, in the next year, AI is going to take over, and because just customers are not our customers, they do want to be the ones also adjusting and building. They know best what they need, and they can leverage AI, but they are still going to be in the game. So I think the platform that really leverages AI and no code together in the right way is going to be enabling the more, easier building, easier and more powerful building, and more relevant to the customer. So I think that's what we will probably see more and more. And I guess last thing is, like, in 5-10 years, we probably are going to see no code really as a mainstream and as a skill set listed in any profiles, and people just having that as part of their tech stack. We do see it already, right? Like I think if I search for software in LinkedIn, I was surprised to see, how many people are already listing their profiles. Like,
that's cool.
That's very rewarding, but at the same time, already just shows that, it's naturally kind of organically happening.
Yeah. I guess just one last question on my side. Have you guys raised money? Are you raising money? And what is your team size at the moment?
Yeah, we are a 43 people team, very heavy on product engineering and design, quite lean, and like lean in our eyes, compared to many other companies. And we have raised funding about 1.5 years ago, Series A stage funding, and we're not planning to proactively raise anytime soon.
Cool. That's awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us today. I hope this is just the first of many other times we come together and collaborate. You have a very impressive platform, great background. It's so great to hear more of your story and where you guys are going. So again, thank you for taking the time to come on today.
Yeah, thank you both. And thanks for the invite. It's great to chat.
Of course.
Well, that was a fantastic interview with Miriam. Really thankful that she took the time to come on our podcast, especially CEOs, founders of these tools.
Yeah.
Like it's just so
Busy
great
people.
to hear it from them themselves, to see the inspiration behind the product, see where they're going. For no code builders like us and business owners of all sizes, it's just good to hear, from the person itself, like what's going on, what's the direction, and what they're looking for. So always extremely appreciative for these no code platforms and team members to come on our podcast and to share their stories with us. Let's move into the community section. I think we have one community section this week. And again, you guys, if you guys are launching anything that you want to put in a community section, you have a new application launch, you have code related news. We've been doing no code news for when WeWeb or was doing events, Webflow was doing events, things like that. If you have those, please send them to us. You can reach out to us on Twitter, LinkedIn, wherever you can find us. But for this news of the week, we have FastGen is working on a product hunt.
They're doing a
Exactly.
product hunt hackathon.
We're
They
doing a
are,
product hackathon, and they've been kind of this week meeting with all the platforms, kind of doing to do this, but they're putting on a product hunt hackathon for creators.
Yeah. You can join. I think you still have some time to join. Yeah, the hackathon is fully remote. I think you have until the 11th to submit your project. One person up to 5 people. You get some cash if you win, a meeting with the Product Hunt CEO, a feature on the Times Square billboard, and some swag. Yeah, I think they're basically trying to see, what can you build with FastGen, this no-code backend builder. They want to be the web flow of the backend, right? Making it easy to build backend tools, more low-code than no-code, from my experience, similar to Xano. And yeah, they're trying to see how people use it. So this is an interesting project. If not, I hope we see something cool come out of the
portfolio
hackathon.
coming out of the hackathon. Yeah. So again, if you have any community news, let us know. Also, if you haven't had a chance to review and rate the podcast, please head over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Leave us a review there. It goes a long way in getting this podcast seen by more people. But otherwise, thank you for tuning into this week at No Code. And David,
see you next week in No Code.